Hey everyone, it's Paul from Mako, and I'd like to put a big shout out for WizKids for letting us do these videos that are going to go onto the WizKids new website. So in this video today we're going to be looking at digital animation, but on their website they've got loads of cool tutorials covering loads of different subjects. So once you've done this digital animation one, try some of the different ones that are on their website. So in this video, like I said, we're going to be looking at digital animation, and for this we need an app called Flipperclip, and on my screen it's this white app that's got a film reel drawn in it, and this is the app that we're going to be using. It's called Flipperclip. So if I'm going to give that a tap, and then when Flipperclip opens, we've got a projects page, and it's got some preloaded projects that the studio and the app have made themselves to give you a little bit of an example of what the digital animation is going to look like. And what we're going to do today is we're going to take a picture of either ourselves or a willing family member or a pet or a toy or anything like that, some inanimate object or a person. I'm going to take a picture of it and we're going to animate on top of it and make it look really crazy and do some crazy things with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our project, and to do that, looking at my screen, it might be slightly different on different devices, but we're looking for a pinky peach button that's got a white plus in it, and this allows us to create a new project. So if I give this a tap, it loads up our project page, and it's asking for a project name. If you're unsure of what you're going to call your project or your animation, you can, if you tap on it, just give it your name. So I'm just going to say Paul's animation. This can be changed later, but if you just want to give it a name, or you might just want to put test or anything like that. Once you're happy with it, if you press the done button, we've got our title of our project in there. And then what we need to do is load a picture. And under the background settings, we have a few logos. These might be slightly different if you're on Android. You might have to tap on the background and the logos will be down the side. For me, on this iPad, they're right there in front of me, and I'm going to click on the little picture that's got like a mountain and a sun on it. I'm going to tap on there, and I'm going to go to my photo library, and I'm going to choose this picture that's of me from earlier. And with the viewfinder around it, you can choose what part of the photo you want. So I want quite a bit of my shoulders and my head so it fits in that viewfinder. And when I'm happy with the positioning of my photo, I'm going to press done. Then if you look at my background, don't worry, because a few people panic. It kind of zooms in, so now you can only see my eyes and a bit of my face. Don't worry, when we open the project, that will be the full picture that we selected in the viewfinder, so don't worry about that. And then at the bottom you've got your formats, okay, so your canvas size, the frames per second. So if I look at canvas size, if I tap on there, it gives us loads of predefined canvas sizes depending on where you're going to put them. So if you wanted a square one, just a perfect square, you can use Instagram. If you wanted a portrait one, for TikTok, there's a TikTok setting which is just a full portrait picture. There's loads of different ones, but we're going to use YouTube because I've got my picture in landscape. It's going to fit that perfectly, so I'm going to stick with YouTube. I'm then going to come out and I'm going to talk to you about frames per second. So if you don't know what frames per second is, that just means for every picture it equates to a second. So it's set at 12, so that means for every 12 pictures that's 1 second of animation. So if I scroll to the top and just have 1 frame per second, now you can see that ball doesn't bounce very clearly across the screen. If I go all the way to the opposite end and go to around about 30, the ball bouncing on the screen is very, very, very smooth, and it's a very nice animation. And if I go back to where we're going to be at, and we're going to go at 12, the ball's still very smooth. It's still a very smooth animation. And that allows us to have a little play with it and get used to drawing in frames per second, and we can get something that looks really nice, a really nice animation in a short amount of time. So we're gonna make sure we're set at 12 frames per second. just come out of there. And then once you're happy with your settings that are the same as mine, you're going to click that Create Project. And now we can see my picture isn't zoomed in, so you're not seeing just my eyes. And we've got some tools at the side, at the left hand side, at the top, and again at the bottom. So I'm just going to go through a couple of the tools before we start drawing anything. And on the left hand side, we've got our pen. And when we tap on our pen, it gives us some more settings. So if I tap on the pen, it allows me to choose what I'm going to draw in, whether it be a fine liner, a pencil, a feathered paintbrush, or a highlighter. These are different tools we can draw with. I'm going to stay with the fine liner. And then underneath that, I've then got how big I want the nib to be, how thick I want the line. So if I go high, I've got a very thick pen. If I keep hold of it and scroll to the bottom, I've got a very thin pen line, or even thinner. Okay. And at the top, once you've drawn, my favorite button right up here is the undo button. So I can just tap that back arrow and it gets rid of all the scribbles that I've done. I'm going to stick with around 12 on my pen. So it's quite thin and it's not too thick, so I can be very precise with my drawing. So I'm going to have my pen size set to 12. And then underneath there is just the colours. So this gives you your colour palette where you can change from black, red, pink, all the different colours that you can see. And there's also, if you scroll across the top, there are some preset colours. Okay, so you can just tap on there and they give you preset colours that you might want to use. So I'm just going to stay with black for the time being on there. I'm going to go out of that by pressing the back arrow, and looking at the tool underneath the pen is the rubber. So if I just draw something really quickly, a really quick scribble, and I tap on the rubber, I can rub things out. But same with the pen tool. If you tap on it again, it gives you some further options. So you can select the size of your rubber by tapping and dragging up. You can also look at the next setting, which is if you want your rubber to have feathered edges. So if I draw back on the screen, so I've got it feathered, so if I rub out of it, you see it kind of leaves a little bit of the pen left underneath. So that depends if you want it feathered or not. That's the second one down. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it's got no feathered edges. And if you tap and scroll all the way to the top, it leaves it feathered, and it also leaves some of it transparent as well, so you can still see some of it on there as well. So same with that, if you tap off it, it takes you back to where the pen and all the other options are. And my last tool that I'm going to look at now before I get started is called the Lasso Tool, which is here, it's the third one down. So this allows you to draw around something that you've drawn. So if I just draw a quick circle and then use the Lasso Tool, if I draw this dotted line around something that I've drawn, I can then move that around the screen, which is really helpful if you draw something and you need to move it around the screen, or you've drawn one eye, you've coloured your eye and you want the exact same one for the opposite eye. You can draw around, you can copy and paste it, draw it, move it around, all these different types of tools. That lasso one is really good. So I'm just going to delete that off my screen. And that's pretty much all the tools that we need to get started with to draw. I'm just going to go over a couple more. At the top, which might be really helpful for you, is the ruler. And if we tap on the ruler, this allows us to draw straight lines. You can also move it around the screen to make it vertical or anything like that, or if you wanted to draw circles, if you tap on the side, you've got the circle tool. So if you wanted perfect eyes, you can tap on there and draw a perfect circle. You can also, with the anchor points, you can make the circle different types of shapes. You can move it around. If you tap on square, you can move it to different parts of the screen. That's a really cool tool if you're not that confident in drawing circles or straight lines and you want something really perfect. That is a perfect tool to use. So you can see me just using the undo button to get rid of things. There we go. I want a nice clean canvas to start with. So I've got a little bit of a drawing there, so I'm going to use the Lasso Tool, highlight it, and just delete it off. So I've got a really clean canvas now, I've got no squiggles on it, and I'm ready to start my animation. So it can be anything you want. You can draw anything you want. Some people might be Harry Potter fans, so you might draw a scar on your face like Harry Potter. You might give yourself googly eyes, rainbow teeth, crazy hair. Okay, so once you've got your settings all set and your canvas is nice and clear, I'm going to start by drawing some squiggly hair. I'm going to give myself a new hairdo, so I'm going to go really wavy hair. Once I've drawn on my first frame, I'm going to look at this plus button at the bottom. I'm going to tap this plus button and I'm going to slightly change my hair so it's a little bit different than the first frame, and then tap the plus button again and then draw something slightly different. Okay, and again changing the hairstyle, the waves, all that kind of thing. I'm going to add some more stuff to this in a little bit, so don't worry if it's looking a little bit weird at the moment. But if I press play now, which is at the bottom corner, my hair's kind of wavy. So it's kind of moving around different positions. So I'm going to do one more frame. And what we can do now is loads of different types of animation. So we can do different things to our picture, to ourselves, or whoever it might be. It might be that I start to colour in my teeth, give myself rainbow teeth that flash, change my eye colour, whatever it might be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start adding some different bits to my animation. I'm going to ask you guys to start animating, and then we'll come back together in a moment and we'll have a look at what we've got. Okay, so if you guys get animating. So another quick tool for you when you're animating is you can pinch and zoom. So there we go, if we stretch our finger and thumb, we can zoom into our picture and we can get a little bit closer and more precise with our drawing. So if we're doing something really small, pinching and zooming and stretching our fingers allows us to work a little bit closer on what we are drawing. Also, you can move the picture on angles, and don't worry if you end up spinning it around like I've done. There is a tool at the top which is two arrows coming diagonally. On Android it is a square that's got 4 arrows in each square. If we tap on that, it takes our picture right back, snaps it back into position, so it's nice and central. So don't worry if you get lost because you pinched and zoomed in quite far. If you tap that, it allows you to come straight out. So another quick tip as well, guys, is the fill tool that we spoke about. So I'm using that to fill in my hair. So I've made sure all the lines are joined, and if I hit fill, it fills all the hair. If there's a gap, so I'll just do this to the side so you can see if I draw a circle, but it's got a bit of a gap in it, and then use the fill tool, which is the paint pot. If I tap fill then, it fills my entire screen because there was a gap. So if I undo and zoom in, you can see there's a gap. If I join that gap up and then hit the fill tool, it then just fills that shape. Okay, so if you're using the fill tool, make sure that there's no gaps in where you fill in, and then it'll fill that entire shape. So once you're kind of happy with your animation, always keep checking it by clicking the play button, going through it, making sure you've not made any mistakes. So I've spotted, once I've watching it back, I must have leaned or leant on the screen, and I've put a black dot that's flashing on my animation, so it must be on one of my frames. There's a little black dot. There it is, frame 1. So I'm just going to rub out that. So you might have been where you've drawing and you've leant on the screen and you've put a mark. So now I know there's no black dot flashing in the background. That's cool. So you might also, I forgot to mention this, but you might want to draw something behind you as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be on you or whoever it might be that you're drawing on. You might want to draw something on the background. You might want to change the background. You might want to change the colour of the t-shirt you're wearing or the top you're wearing. Loads of different things that you can draw on any part of this canvas. So once you're happy with your animation, the next thing is we can export this project, this animation out, and you can share it on social media. You can send it to whoever you want. Show people the work that you've been doing. So what we need to do at the top is 3 dots in a row. If we click on that, it says make movie. So if I tap make movie, I can rename my project. So I'm going to put Paul's silly face animation. That's going to be the title of my animation. So it gives you the opportunity to change the project name again. And then we've got all our canvas sizes again, and we've also got the Flipperclip watermark. Okay, so what will happen is at the bottom corner of your movie you will have the Flipperclip logo. Okay, if you pay for the app, you can get rid of it, but it's only a little watermark, so it doesn't matter if it goes onto your animation. You can barely see it, it just goes into the bottom corner. So once you're happy, you've renamed your project. If you needed to change it, what we're going to do is we're going to click make movie, and then it gives us the option to share it, whether we want to share it to YouTube, to Facebook, save it to our device in the photos. Tapping on more, it gives you loads of different options where you can save it, where you can send it to, who you can share it to. Okay, so I'll leave that up to you where you want to send it to and who you want to share it with, but that's how we share it and export the movie. Okay, that's everything to do with Flipperclip that you need to make your own animations and export them and share them with people. So I've been Paul from Make or Create. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go and check out some of the other awesome videos. Thank you very much, guys.